This morning, these birds were taken from the Fort Jackson Rehabilitation Facility in Burris, Louisiana, and they were driven to the New Orleans airport, where the Coast Guard picked us up in an air-conditioned airplane, which is great for these birds because we don't want them to overheat during transport. And we flew from Louisiana into St. Pete Coast Guard Station. When we got there, the Fort DeSoto County Park picked us up in air-conditioned vans again and drove us out here. And it was really a team effort. This could not have happened without all the folks back in the Incident Command Center, the Fish and Wildlife Service, Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, the Coast Guard, and certainly the park. The park is the one who gave us the facilities to release these birds.
How did the birds do with the travel?
You know, they're amazingly resilient. These are pretty calm birds. Once we stopped moving them around, they settled down, sat in their crates for the ride, and really didn't make a peep.
How bad off were they when they were first found, oiled?
It varies. Some come in lightly oiled and some heavily oiled, and I don't know these particular animals how bad off they were.
If you could go over the basics, how many birds there were, how many cages, how many more birds will be coming?
Sure. So in today's release there were 32 birds. They were all brown pelicans. There were 16 cages. We put two birds to a cage. We can put 3 birds to a cage if we have too many. Let's see.
How many more will be coming here?
We have approximately in the realm of 100 birds still at the Fort Jackson facility, and it really depends. We choose release sites based on oil trajectory, based on weather, based on habitat, and habitat is our primary key. We need to find a good spot for these guys to take up residence if at all possible.
Can you speak to that issue a little bit more about why you chose this spot?
Sure. A big one was because they have protected beaches and they have a good prey base for the pelicans. Another is close vicinity to a Coast Guard station, so easy transport for us. Third is logistics of getting them over here. And then the storms looked like they were headed towards Texas, and the oil also looked like it was staying out farther away from the loop current and staying away from Florida.
Do you have a rough count on how many birds have been released so far with this program?
I believe just over 400 have been released.
The original number of birds that I heard was a little bit higher. Did you guys lose a few of them, or?
Well, certainly animals come in different states of medical condition, and yes, we do lose some birds.
Did you lose any on this flight?
No. These guys were very healthy and ready to go.
Some people wonder why not farther away from the oil. Can you speak to this spot in Florida? Sure,
that's a great question. And honestly, there is still some, the experts are debating just the exact right location to release these guys. And it would make more sense from an oil perspective to go to the Atlantic coast. However, we want to try and keep these guys as close to what they call home as possible. And then we're keeping their genetic interaction with other birds as similar as possible, and we're decreasing the possibility of spreading diseases to other areas.
Can you tell me where they were picked up off the coast of Louisiana?
That I don't know specifically.
I could help out with that a little bit.
State your name.
My name is Cassidy, Lejeune with Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, and we have field operations throughout the coast of Louisiana. We have people from the far northeast corner of the state, around the toe of the boot, all the way to the central part of Louisiana. We don't know for sure where these birds came from out of the response effort that we have, but it was from the southeast portion of Louisiana, out on the coast.
Now with brown pelicans, would they eventually migrate back there, or will they be just as happy here in Florida with the brown pelicans we have over here?
I think there's a lot of suitable habitat in Florida, and they're naturally occurring in Florida, so there's a very good chance that they will reside here and take permanent residence here. But that's not anything concrete. That's one thing we're looking into.
Are you banding and then tracking them, or how are we tracking the success of these releases?
Every bird that's released has 2 bands on them. They have the Fish and Wildlife Service metal band, and there's also a color auxiliary band, so that if someone sees this particular color, can call it in, and we can kind of track it from that perspective.
Are these birds easily stressed?
These are some pretty hardy birds. These guys do pretty well. Any type of human interaction and hands-on activity can be a stress to the birds, but we do our best to minimize impacts. And they're pretty hardy species. I mean, we traveled here today. As you can see on the release today, every one of them took off fine.
Can you talk about how devastating not just these birds, but how devastating the oil spill has been to all of the birds you've been dealing with and the wildlife you've been dealing with?
Well, it's kind of varied on a case-by-case basis. We've had some impacts in coastal Louisiana to some bird colonies that are of great concern to us and our partnering agencies. But overall, I think we're doing pretty well, all things considered, with the extent of the spill.
Some scientists have kind of poo-pooed this rescue effort as far as survival rates. How confident are you that these birds are going to be okay?
I think these birds, I think they will be okay. I know that the rehab facility personnel, that is IB, RRC folks, and tri-state folks, they feel pretty confident that their rehab efforts can be successful. I know it depends on the conditions of the birds, the individual birds on a case-by-case basis. But I believe I read in a report that IB, RRC released that they anticipate 50 to 80% survival. So I think overall there's a good chance of these birds doing well.
They flock together when you release them. Do you think they'll sort of stay together almost like a family? Do you anticipate that?
I think they'll move around a little bit. They'll disperse and get kind of broken up pretty quickly.
What kind of testing goes on before you decide a bird is prepared to be released? How do you know that it's clean enough and well enough?
Well, these birds have a variety of health checks every day at the rehabilitation center. They are checked for blood work to see if they're within normal parameters. They have physical exam, and the most important one is their waterproofing test. So they are sprayed down with a mist of water, and if the water beads up and rolls right off the bird, then that's a really good indication that they're ready to go.
Once Louisiana's back up and running again with no oil, the oil has been capped and everything is better. Are you coming back to get these birds, or where do you go from there?
No, sir. There's no plans for capturing birds and releasing them back into Louisiana at this time. Mainly what we're doing is putting together an effort to just monitor our population as a whole and just see how things go for the future.
How would you describe their condition when they were captured?
It was varied. It's like I said, a case-by-case situation. Most of these birds were incapable of flying. They have enough oil on them that they're kind of incapacitated and are easy to catch from the perspective of getting up to these birds and grabbing them with nets and so on. So they were in pretty poor shape. They looked outstanding today. As you saw, they hopped out of these cages and flew away really quickly.
What was it like?
All oiled, sir? They're all oiled?
All these birds were oiled as a result of the spill.
How come it wasn't 70 or 60 instead of 30?
Each morning before they are moved and put onto transport, they have one last health check, and some of the birds were determined to not be ready to go. They can lose their waterproofing overnight if they don't have exactly the right conditions, and it's rather difficult to maintain those in a rehab facility.
Who actually picked them up? Fishermen or?
No, it's the wildlife branch in Houma. We have personnel, both federal folks, state folks that are out in the field. We have over 80 boats on the water in coastal Louisiana that are specifically related or are tasked with wildlife response work.
And over what period of time? Like 2 weeks or a month or how?
Well, we have personnel out there daily.
So these birds were picked up like what, last 2 weeks or last?
Approximately 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
So it takes at least 2 weeks to rehab usually?
Anywhere from 10 to 14 days.
And where does the rehab take place?
It's in Fort Jackson in Burris, Louisiana.